United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Josh, would you please be kind enough to take attendance?
For Mr. Foster.
I am here.
Mr. Burgess.
Here.
Mrs. Foster.
Here.
Mr. Frazier.
Here.
Mr. Nealon.
Here.
Mr. Wentworth is
Absent.
absent.
You can answer that.
Mrs. Aruda.
Here.
And Ms. Atherton Dow.
Here.
All right.
This is the time for public participation. You are here, which no one is. You could come up to the crystal podium if you'd like, but you're not here. And if you're not, but you would like to publicly participate, you can email for public comment at publiccomment@rsu25.org, or you can phone in for public comment at 307-8099. And since we've got no one here, we'll move straight on to adjustments to the agenda.
I have a couple of adjustments for you. To L1 for resignations, I would like to add Jen Tarian for BMS Yearbook Advisor and Jared Copeland, BMS Assistant Football Coach. And then I would also like to add a new agenda item, L7, which we will take after the executive session, just consideration and possible action on a personnel matter.
Perfect. Next, we have approval of minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of June 16th, 2025.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? It's unanimous with one absent. So we have communications and correspondence.
I do not.
Superintendent?
So you have my report. As I stated in there, we are in summer cleaning mode. A little different this summer compared to last summer. We don't have the big facility projects like we did with the middle school and the boiler projects, which has been nice. I think Anthony's really appreciating his summer more and doing just more normal projects. But certainly, there's always a lot of work to do to get our schools and our grounds up and running, ready for the next school year. And they do a fantastic job. In terms of hiring, as I stated in my report, we have made some progress on our special education teaching department. At one point, we were down 3.5 positions. We have cut that back to 1.5 positions now. So, we have a plan. If we cannot capture the full 1.5 teaching position, we will be able to come up with that. The reason we have a half a position, if you remember, we had a staff person that was half-time Title I and half-time special education just based on her certification and student need. That staff member has gone full-time Title I teacher at the Jewish school. So we have that half a position. We don't know if we'll be able to fill that, most likely. So that will kind of revert back to where we were headed into the beginning of last year. And then we also have, obviously, the big glaring vacancy in our Miles Lane principal position, which we will be discussing in executive session today.
Okay, you'll be right here. Do you have any idea how we're coming on the replacement windows on the science wing? I have no.
Anthony's been out the last week and a half on vacation, so I don't have an exact date on it. I know that
It's in the, for this summer, it's gonna be done. Okay, well, I thought so, but some was quick.
well, and some of those, we also had a situation up at the Miles Lane School. There's a couple of those that we had to replace,
Right,
so we're
right.
kind of bouncing back and forth between them.
Okay.
Any other questions for Joe? Board chair report. It's just July. Haven't had a whole lot going on that I can report out on, but there were a few items of interest. There's a few law changes which have just very recently happened, which are going to affect the way finance has to report out on payroll, and we've got to talk about that at Finance Committee meeting. And Grok 4 was released, and supposedly it's going to be smarter than any human being, and we're all going to lose our job tomorrow. And number 4 on the top one is auditors, so I might be able to fill some of your positions here pretty quick.
And can we also add to your report, Tom?
Sure.
I'm sorry, could have gone mine, but I think the timing of it, last board meeting, our softball team was headed, our girls track team had just won
Yes,
the
they were
championship.
just.
Our girls team was headed to the Northern Maine Championship, which they won, and then they went on to win the state championship that next
Yeah, they
Saturday.
won.
So
They went undefeated, right?
No,
Well,
they
no,
lost
they
one.
lost
They lost one game.
10, yeah, so a great season for them, and it was nice for them to kind of get over the hump for a team that had had their number the last 2 years in the state championship game. So I couldn't remember the timing on that, but I think our last
No,
meeting
you're
was
right, it
before.
was.
Yeah, it was in
right.
between.
I can't remember when in one season, we've had 2 state champions. We've had a fall and a spring, but 2 spring sports.
Yeah, and I think when you look at to have a girls' state championship in track and in softball during the same season, and, you know, that's a school our size to be able to, and you need a lot of people to win a track state championship, and you need a lot of people to win a softball state championship. These are not just 1 or 2 people, you know, or 5-person, you know, squads that you put out there, so, great spring.
We're gonna need more counter space.
You know
Mr.
what?
Magus has a
Magus is
plan for
working
that.
on that.
He's making these big, I think you've seen him up there for like our sportsmanship banners where they just list the team and the year, as opposed to having individual banners, so there's one bigger one. So now we're gonna do that by sport, so we'll say like Bucksboro High School football, and we'll list the years that they won the state championship, one big banner, we'll hold on to the individual banners.
Nice.
But we literally have no space up in the gym.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
What a
It's
problem
great
to
problem.
have.
I've seen some schools do that, I think
That's-
Old Town does
yeah.
that. and-
Yeah.
We do it with wrestling.
We do,
100,
with individuals. So we've done it with individuals and wrestling and in track, but now we're gonna take that model and shift it over to the teams, so.
So along with the championships, I believe both coaches were recognized as well.
Yes,
Coaches of
yeah,
the year.
Coach of the Year, I think this is like the 19th time in a row that has been them. And Coach Morrison, I really think it's been 5 or 6 years in a row that he's won Coach of the Year. And back-to-back years for Coach Rotella, for Coach of the Year, yeah, so.
Outstanding.
Yeah, and a number of Player of the Years and First Team, so it was a great season.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tom, to jump in.
Oh, no, that was good, I had forgotten the timing of those.
Me too.
Community reports, we've got curriculum.
We did not meet.
Good, I didn't miss it.
I
missed it.
You did not miss it.
Okay, good.
Finance committee met right before this meeting. We discussed the budget to actual, which is in very good shape. We discussed the school lunch program, which is not so out of the shape, but the regular budget has enough money that we can absorb it quite nicely. And we talked about the finalizing of the senior lunch program, which we're going to be able to pay out all of the people who had prepaid their meals and terminate the program. Any questions for finance? All right, policy?
Policy committee did meet, I wasn't in attendance at the meeting, and so either Mr. Tripp, I'm not sure if Mr. Nealon was at that meeting, I know Danny was, but.
Yeah, we have 5 policies that we're bringing here, one of which we've had a lot of discussion over the last few months. And so we finally have agreed on a proposal that we'll bring to you. 2 policies just around reimbursement, practices that we've had in place, but auditors and our business managers really like if we have policies that back up how we reimburse employees. And then we have a social media, employee use of social media policy that we'll bring for your reading, first reading.
Facilities and graphics,
Did not meet,
HCTC.
did not meet.
There you go, no old business,
There we go.
doing good.
We're rolling.
Resignations and retirements.
So for resignations for teachers, Caitlin Cloutier, who graduated we actually had just hired this year, with regret had to put in a resignation, and she's just moving, how to say, with a boyfriend, so just.
That happens at that
These
time.
It does,
are
it's just-
boyfriend and girlfriends. That's not everybody.
But sent a very nice letter, was very appreciative of the opportunity, had a great experience, but just
Wasn't gonna
life
work.
happens, and so. And then Michelle Taylor, our BCBA that we've had, has also resigned her position. She is taking a position with the PBIS group.
What does BCBA mean?
Board Certified Behavior Analyst.
Oh, okay, I didn't know we had one of those.
Yeah, so her position actually was moved into the service center. So she works 4 days, 1 day a week for Orrington, and then the other days for us. So basically, Keith, that would be people that come in, they'll do risk assessments and behavior analysis on students in the classroom. And so they'll observe them and see what accommodations and interventions that they would need. They do a lot of professional development with our teachers. What we will do is we will contract out, that's what we used to do prior to
Oh,
hiring
we
Michelle.
had our own
Yeah.
personnel,
Okay,
okay,
good.
okay.
So prior to, we actually contracted with Michelle Taylor, and then, it was more cost effective for us to bring on our own BCBA. We actually have some people right now on our staff, special ed teachers that are working towards a BCBA certification, so that we may go back down that route. But for right now, we are just gonna contract out on an as-needed basis for this year. And we've already lined up, an organization to help us do that, so.
Because I attend those meetings, the TBIS meetings.
Right, so that's, Michelle had a big role in our PBIS program. That was, part of her salary was paid out of title funds for a lot of the PBIS work. The other part of her was paid out of special education to do the behavior analyst. And so she writes and attends a lot of IEP meetings and writes the reports for those. So we'll contract that piece out. It's very similar to the conversation we thought about, we didn't end up doing this year, but I think we will continue to look at it as a psychologist. Because we have to pay for so many evaluations for our students for triennials and stuff throughout the course of the year. If we could find the person, and share that person with another school district, it does become more cost effective. It's the issue of trying to find a person to be able to do that, so. And then the other resignations we have are coaches. Melissa Support is actually moving to special education. She was one of the ones that had a position change, so is moving from 8th grade math to special education. And doing so just the first reason, time-wise, coaching was just a lot, so she's stepped down from those positions. And then Shantara and Jared Copeland just had their time and had good experiences and felt it was the right time to step away.
How soon do we need to replace the middle school cross-country coach?
As soon as possible. We've already,
Because they do some work in the summer or?
Not middle
or
school.
not in middle school, okay, so
High
it's
school.
not, so it's not like high school.
right.
But still pretty soon, because it's
Run
your
around.
lives.
So we have internally,
Alright.
we posted and Mrs. Dickey's already begun her, like,
Her
just
search.
putting out to her staff to try to find.
Okay.
Has Andrew Shorey come on? He's on board now, is he?
Yep, he was here July 1st, he was in his office, he'd been here a couple times beforehand and he's been working with Sue in terms of getting the postings and stuff out for his open positions, getting to know his staff. He's excited, so.
I would look for a motion to accept the resignations and retirements.
So moved.
Sounds good.
All right, all those in favor?
Save me a little bit of it.
That's unanimous. Next, we have nominations.
So moved.
All right, for nominations, for support personnel, we have Katie Carnes, who will be joining us as our administrative assistant at the middle school. Joey Erickson, as a pre-K ed tech. Joey is someone that we're familiar with, has had a number of students that have come through and take part of our programs. And then for coaches co-curricular, Aiden McGuire, former football player, and works for us on the grounds during the summer, to volunteer for the football team, and Phil Ash. He should have actually been on the last month's, we were sent the wrong name on accident, so we approved Phil Harvey, who has no interest in, being involved.
I was shocked that he was gonna be a volunteer, when I went up to him, and I said, hey, gee, wait.
So Phil
That's
Ash,
called voluntold.
who has been a long time
Now that we
volunteer.
voted you in.
So,
Guess what you're gonna be doing?
Oh, that's kind of how I got on the board, you know? Just
Yeah, he come to
voluntold.
this party and then look what happened.
All right, I would look for a motion.
Well, I move that we accept the nominations, as listed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all those in favor? That's unanimous. Next, we got first readings of policies.
Okay, so you have the policies in your packet, and I'll start with the big one, JJIE. So this is chemical use by students relating to student activities and extracurricular participation. So I think we've kind of gone over the backstory over this a couple of times here, but it was brought to us by students. Wanted us to take a look at this policy, also some parents, in a very positive way in terms of how they wanted us to approach it. They wrote us a letter and went through the process the right way, which was nice to see, to have students involved in the adoption process of policies and amendments. So the thought process that they had was that across the board in our disciplinary actions, in all of our disciplinary ladders, there's a tiered process. So if you're messing around in class, you get warned, and then you may get sent out, and then you may get a detention, and then that would escalate to in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. So we have that tiered all the way up to expulsion, if you look at that disciplinary ladder. The one spot that we did not have a tiered system was in this policy here. So if a student athlete has a violation of our chemical health policy, they were, in our current policy, are suspended for 30 activity days. Activity days are Monday through Saturday, they do not include Sundays or holidays where there can be no activities, so like
6 weeks.
Christmas, basically 6 weeks of a season,
Holy-
regardless of how many times that infraction occurred. So if you're a first-time offender, you are off, no practice, no play for 6 weeks. If you're a fifth-time offender, you're off for 30 days, no practice, no play. So there was no tiered, it was just consistent across the board regardless of how many infractions there were. Mr. Ward did a presentation to the policy committee a couple of months ago and gave us the data. Obviously, we have seen a huge uptick in vaping technology and the number of suspensions that we've had. What was one word? So we had a lot, we've had, this policy has come into effect a lot. He also gave us some data on the number of repeat offenders. And obviously, there's a big drop off from first-time offenders to second-time offenders. But there was still a handful of students that were repeat offenders. And I think we had one more than repeat offender, one that had violated the policy more than twice. So I think we probably met on this 3 times. And I will say for a policy that has a lot of, can be very tumultuous in nature, because you're talking about
The entire season.
extracurricular activities, how much you can participate. I will say we were, I don't wanna say indifferent, that's not the right word, but we could really see both of them, and we didn't wanna be too easy on them, but we also wanted to make sure that we were kind of consistent in our policies. We looked at a lot of different schools around us, and there were 2 or 3 schools that do what we do. It was like 30 days every single time. There were more schools that have a tiered system, so it was a little easier early on than
And
progressively.
it seems like this is a little bit more incentive to like cut it out.
Yes, so we settled, and I say settled, I mean, again, nobody was really vehemently opposed, and you guys can speak, if you, but to one way or the other, but we felt that we should at least look at this tiered system. This is what we just decided to bring forward. And certainly if the board, as a group, feels like this is not the route we wanna go and we wanna stay with the original policy, I think everybody was okay with that as well. So what you'll see here is 18 days. I know 18 seems pretty arbitrary, but 6 weeks is 30 days. I'm sorry, 30 days is 5 weeks, 6 activity days. So that is the current policy. If you think Monday through Saturday, that is 5 weeks of activity days when you have a 30-day suspension. We dropped that to 18 days, which would be 3 weeks of suspension.
I think that's fair.
So the first one, they are getting, I'm gonna say break, they're still losing time, but a break compared to what the current policy is.
Right.
Okay, so.
But then the second one, they're going way up.
But the second one, we jumped it up to 60 days.
That could kill the season.
And so 60
10
days
weeks.
pretty much takes away your season.
Yeah.
But if you're at some stupid party 2 days before the playoffs, and you decide that you're gonna post it all on Facebook because you're an idiot,
Then you deserve to.
exactly, you're still not gonna break
We're still
records.
not gonna break on
No,
that, no.
okay, alright.
What I will say that this does kind of help with, we've had this policy come into play, and it's the way that it should be done, and it's consistent with all the other schools around us, but we have inside of our policy that if you're in the presence of, so you can be at a party and not be participating, but you are willingly in the presence of drinking or just filming, then that is still a violation of our athletic code of conduct. So this, I would say, in some ways, they're still getting punished, but it's not at that 30-day level, they're getting it at the 18-day level. And again, if they violate it again, now they're jumped up to 60 days, which is harsh. And then a third violation, obviously they're not getting the lesson, and that becomes a calendar year.
Well, the 3 weeks is a slap on the wrist. It shouldn't hurt the team too bad, and hopefully you've smartened up.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, I like that a little bit better. I just feel like the 30 days is just sort of like you don't learn anything or.
It's progressive.
What is important to know is that this does not take into account timing of when you do this. So if you are a spring athlete and that's the only sport that you do, and you have a violation of this policy in October, that is your first offense. You are getting 18 days from that offense. It doesn't affect you because you're not participating in anything.
Right.
But first week of baseball or softball or track or whatever you're doing, and you have another violation of the policy, that is your second offense.
Yeah.
It does not say, and we've been pretty consistent with this does not say that you have to be in season. You can't just be all willy-nilly with your, any type of violations of this.
Is it a clean slate at the beginning of every year? As long as you're not that 1
As long as you're
year,
not on the three,
right?
yes. Yeah, that, the way that we have interpreted this policy in the past, it has
Like
been,
if I did it the sophomore year, the 3 week, and then my junior year, and in fact, it wouldn't be 60 from that, it would still be the 18 days.
but you can't get a reset from your calendar year.
No.
If you've had that third one, the summer break does not vacate your calendar.
It's 365 days, right? Yeah.
And what's important to know is that if you have a first offense on the very last day of softball season or baseball season, your 18 days are activity days. Summer does not count as activity days. So your 18 days would be that following fall.
Pre-season,
Uh,
would it start at
You
pre-season?
start at the first day of sports.
Right.
So, we always have it that student athletes can try out, regardless if they are, because we don't want them to not be involved in a team, just because of where their suspension falls. But again, if you get it in the fall and basketball tryouts happen during that 18 days, you can come back for those tryouts, you can try out. Those do not count as your suspension days. Those 2 days would.
You have a job interview.
Yeah, so you can still make a team, but then, once you've made it, then you're.
That's suspended.
I like that, it's,
It's progressive, which is good.
yeah,
Questions on that policy?
we've done a lot of work and thought went into it.
Yeah, I appreciate the committee, I mean, it was, and again, I appreciate, students often will bring this forward because any policy, because they may feel like they were a victim of a policy or like it was maybe enforced in a way that they didn't like. But the way that they handled this was very appropriate. They were like, okay, I served my time, I would like this to be addressed, and I know. They said, this is not gonna affect me again, but I wanna make sure that other people were, could have a different experience if this is.
At least the first offense, everybody makes mistakes.
Mhm.
And it's not going to be real major, not hopefully that they.
Isn't why that all came up because of the first offense was so severe?
Mhm.
That was the big problem.
Yep.
So I think he did
Did
it right.
So we've got a number of policies. Do you want to take this one individually first and then we take them each individually, or are the other ones so minor that we can just
I don't
roll
see
it
any
all?
changes in it.
I say, let me go through all of them, and if anybody wants to do any of them individually afterwards, are you okay with that?
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
DKC and DKCR, these are the two that I was talking about in terms of, this is completely for the business department, we'd have policies. We have procedures that we already just used, we just never had it codified in policy anywhere. And this is just basically, if Mr. Morrow's going to, buy something for the tech department that he wants to get reimbursed for, he has to have prior approval, before he can do that, or there will be no expectation of reimbursement. So
Yeah, Mr.
he can't go buy a fantastic gaming computer that he thinks is gonna be, world class, and he's gonna put it in here, with his own credit card, and then just expect us to reimburse him for that. Again, we don't have a lot of issues with this, but it just gives us protection. And then the travel piece, and again, we've had this in place, we have a lot of people that travel throughout the course of the year, they stay overnight. Basically, this is just saying there's an allotted amount of money that they have while they are gone. We use a federal reimbursement rate if they are driving their own vehicles. So as that changes, we don't put the exact amount in there, we just say we're gonna use whatever the federal rate is. Right now, I think it's 70 cents.
Is it really?
We did up, it used to be $50 a day for meals. You can't go to McDonald's and not spend $20 now for one meal. So if we want them to actually get anything that we would want them to eat, we have upped it to $75 or with permission to go more. If you're staying in Boston with a group of students, $75 doesn't get you breakfast there anymore, probably. So we will make those individual adjustments as needed. But the $75 gives us a little coverage, because we have some teachers that are going to a conference, and overnight this summer. 2 of the 3 meals are provided by the conference, right? So, we've allotted them $50 for meals that evening, when they go out, so. So those are those 2, they're boilerplate from MSMA. The only thing that we changed was just the amount of money on the daily rates for, meals. Questions on those 2?
So basically, they're brand new policies, just.
Brand new policies, we do not have these ones at all. That's why you see nothing highlighted on those.
That's why I
ones.
noticed that no,
Yeah.
date, approval date, will be, but.
Josh, what's, MSBA, what day is that this year, do you know? Can you get that back to, can you just keep that in mind for later?
Yeah.
Thank you.
October 25th, 6th, something like that.
Okay.
All right, moving on to student computer and internet use, so I believe that is IJNDB. So this is one, I think there was 2 sentences added to it that I highlighted. And basically the first one, and I don't have my copy in front of me, I look it up here, but just says that if you find something on the internet, we are not responsible for its authenticity. So just because ChatGPT or Wikipedia says it's true and you believe it's true, we're not responsible for your ability to decipher fact from fiction that you could find on the internet. And then the last piece to it on the back,
It's the notification piece.
oh, the notification that we're gonna put it in the handbooks, thank you, David. So, the lawyers recommended we put those 2 sentences in there, so I put those 2 sentences in there for. Questions on that one? Last one, and this is a brand new policy as well, so you'll see why that this is not, there's nothing highlighted on this one, employee use of social media. So we have, there are kind of 2 parts to this policy. The first one speaks to school-run social media pages. So we have a number of, like, Foxborough High School has a page, Miles Lane has a page, boys soccer has a page. There's lots of Facebook/Instagram pages that we run to provide information to our community, to our families.
BHS Athletics.
BHS Athletics, right, gets a ton of views
Yep.
and
The robotics team.
robotics.
Yeah.
We're pretty fortunate, we have a lot of them. And we get a lot of great publicity, and honestly, it's the best way that we can get information out to families.
Yeah, if we didn't have that, I wouldn't know what was going on.
So, it's great, except that we are responsible for all of these pages that have our logos, have our names attached to them, that we are identifying as school-run pages. So this says that a staff member cannot create an RSU 25 affiliated social media page without the approval of an administrator. So it starts at the building level administrators can approve it, or I can approve them. There has to be oversight by an administrator as well. So an example is, Scott is our basketball coach, he creates a basketball Facebook page. That has to have one of the moderators, or organizer, that has to be an administrator of RSU 25. So we want to have that oversight, because if for some reason Scott's no longer available to do something, we need to make changes to it, we have that ability. If Scott goes rogue on us and starts posting things that are not consistent with our values and mission statement, we need to be able to shut that down and have control over it. And quite honestly, we can't do that. The only thing we could do if we were not a moderator is report it. And then It could get blocked, it could not. So basically it says if our logo, our names are attached to it, then we have to have connection to it, and it has to be run through an RSU 25 email account. It cannot be run through personal emails.
Well, I know that I asked, Lacey, who was the AD, I said, I can't find out any dates when middle school games are played, I don't know. And she said, I'm not an administrator, I can't put it on.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, that's gonna be fixed with the new
Yeah.
AD.
So it will. So we are gonna tackle that. There are a lot of them out there. And they're not, I will say, they're not being misused. That's not why this policy has originated. It's to make sure that they don't get misused, or if they do get misused, we have some ground to stand on. Isha?
Is there any way we can do like a Google Calendar that people can access? Like, not that they can change, but that they can access that Google Calendar with all the dates for this, for, you know, happenings, so everyone has a place to go where it's like, what can
It's
I?
on our website. And you can add those to your Google Calendar from those. So we have a Google Calendar that feeds our website calendar on the site, correct me if I'm wrong, on any of this, Mr. Morrow?
For the central office, we do for big events.
Yeah.
When you get into the individual events for the schools, like the high school, you have to go to the sports page,
Right.
which is our teams or whatever it is to get the schedule. We can't just get it on the website.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is that there's a
They
Google
go to middle
Calendar
school,
that
you go to
has,
the middle school, and you gotta go to their athletics. So it would be a good topic of discussion for leadership, Mr. Tripp, is to centralize that.
But that
cause you
is-
could do like, each school has a different color, so you could be like, oh, well, I wanna look at the middle school events, or I wanna look at the high school
Yeah, when we
events.
combine the schools, what we end up with, it seems like not much, but like if you pull a BMS practice schedule, well, that's a lot. If you pull the high school practice schedule, you need
Oh,
two people
God.
and a whiteboard to go through.
Right,
So you do need to try to figure out how that's gonna be. And the other things that are coming up on us is things that the MBA requires us to use, like the high school athletics. There's a 2027 injunction, or I should say DOJ action, that if it's not compliant, we'll get shut down. So though, in the next 2 years, there's gonna be mandatory changes that need to happen, which should smooth that out. But I think that's a good topic. I think that's good for us to bring in leadership, maybe even a workshop topic, is how are we doing, especially as we replace administrators, athletic directors, things along that nature. We definitely have broken the pattern of this is how we do things, and we end up with this is how I've done things. Not that any of those are wrong, but as a parent, it can be frustrating. So I do think that's a good topic, Mr. Tripp.
right, like I get people all the time, they're like, hey, do you know where to find this? And I'm like, nope.
And we found out the VHS calendar was broken on the website, because someone asked me about it. It was a member of the community. Sure enough, it was broken for like 3 months, and we just post on the calendar and see if it works.
The second half of that policy is, so you have school-based social media pages. The second half of this is speaking to staff, personnel's personal Facebook pages. So, basically what this policy says is that we recognize that people have Facebook pages. They have their own personal Facebook pages. And that what we are saying that's fine. And anybody can have, and there's freedom of speech within your own Facebook page. They need to be separate from work. So one, you should not be setting these up with work emails. So your personal email page should not be associated to your work email account. That is very hard for us to track. We really can't tell if they are or not unless they publicly make that available and we go looking for it. So, I mean, we don't want that to happen, and we're gonna keep pushing that out there so they will make those changes. So that's one part of the policy. The other part is basically saying is, yes, we recognize that there is freedom of speech, but we also recognize that you may be able to say what you want on your Facebook page, but there are some things that you will say that can have ramifications for you in terms of regards to your employment with the RSU. So we have certain sets of missions and guidelines that you have, and if you are posting something that would violate or basically make it difficult for you to do your job, work with students, based on what is out there, that could be a violation of this policy. We do have this in one other spot, the staff conduct with students policy, and basically all it says there is that you just can't have, you can't be friends, or have relationships is a bad word to use, but basically connections via social media with students, if you're a staff member, unless they're immediate family. So obviously if you're if your son or daughter is in the school, you're allowed to be friends with them on Facebook. Or if you have a niece or nephew that's in the school.
If they
that's
accept
okay.
you, I mean.
If they accept you, good point.
That's the problem.
Yeah, right. But we wanna make sure that we have professional, separation there from staff and students with that. You know, someone asked like, is that, students, they're not trying to be, they just, hey, I see my teacher on
Yeah.
Facebook, so I hit friend request. We were talking about some policy committee, after graduation, as soon as graduation day comes in there, without a doubt, ever since I've been here, you get like 47 friend requests. Because they know they can't do it, and all of a sudden you just get flooded with students, former athletes that you've coached and like.
Well, then I remember Walter reached out to Kendall Warden once and she messaged me, she's like, I cannot, just tell Walter, I'm sorry, but until he's graduated, we cannot be friends on social media. So your people do know that
They
too,
do, yes.
and they're good about it.
And we do have inside of our collectively bargaining agreement in a contract that there is a professionalism clause that, they cannot do things that would harm the RSU.
Yeah.
This just really kind of codifies what that looks like on social media. So, so the policy committee reviewed it, we were comfortable with it. I also sent it to the teachers union, and honestly, there's teacher representation on our committee as well. And they had no objections to it or recommendations for changes.
Okay.
That gets us through the policy.
I didn't see the policy that I wanted you to reference. Is that on there about
I
the
thought I highlighted.
images? Not allowing, where you have to sign the waiver to allow your image, your child's image to be.
I didn't put it in that, I have a version of it where it is on there. Is it not on that one?
I don't think any of these cover that, but it may, I'm not sure exactly which policy that was that I wanted.
I'll have that for the second reading.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, 'cause I don't want it to hold up anything.
No.
It was,
Yeah, where it's just a cross-reference, it's fine, because it's not
Okay.
part of the language.
okay.
I do have that in a copy somewhere, I probably just loaded the one from my policy committee over.
Yeah, I don't
You're probably right,
think it's
yeah,
any
probably
one of
didn't.
those.
What Keith was just saying is that we have to sign a media release, and where this talks about social media, and we have lots of posts about students, on our social media pages, and we just wanna cross-reference the media release, policy that we have, in terms of internet use in here.
Because
Which-
we removed some language in it that is covered by that policy.
Correct.
So as long as we cross-reference that policy, we were more than covering what they wanted in here that we didn't think deemed appropriate.
I will make sure that that is there for the second one. I do have, like I said, it's in one of my versions, just on that one.
Good.
Thank you for that, catch, Keith.
Yep.
Any other comments on policies? I would look for a motion to move these policies forward, second reading.
I move that we move these 5 policies as presented for a second reading.
Second.
Oh, I just have one question. If you bring up the copy that you have, can that be reviewed at the second reading? Okay,
So second reading, you can have minor.
Yeah, so
This is just a cross-reference.
just because he had that question, I wouldn't wanna move it forward without,
Yeah.
as long as we can review that in the second reading real quick. and disagree.
And it won't change any of the language up above, it's just an addition of a cross-reference there.
Perfect. All right, then I'm good. Thanks.
All right, we have a motion and a second, all those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. And now we got everybody.
We do?
All right, next we've got no second readings.
Nope.
Review and approval of student handbook for GH Jewett School, Miles Lane School, Bucksport Middle School, Bucksport High School.
So this is just an agenda item that I don't remember us always having. I mean, we've kind of always attached them here, but in our policy, it actually says that we are gonna approve them annually. So I know that we have always, as principals, we've always included them in a board report, in our principal reports. But we never took any official action on them. What I will say that there is no significant changes to the policies that you have, the handbooks that you have that we've approved in the past. The only one that we do have is the cell phone policy. And there's no changes to that policy. So that policy in the handbook is exactly the same. How we're enforcing it really is the same. We're just saying that because it's now law, we are really, really enforcing it. like there's no gray area here anymore, like this is,
We're just being compliant now.
yeah. And this is specifically, Mrs. Dickey did a really good job at tackling this at the middle school last year, in terms of just making sure they're not out during class time. You know, it's something at the high school, we've always battled, you know, and for the most part, it happens pretty good, like when instruction's going on, they're not out, but it's that in-between time, when there's downtime, study halls. So now, basically, just the update is, and Mr. Ward sent out a letter if you have a high school student, that is very clear about what those procedures will look like. That they're just not gonna be allowed out at any point, including study halls during the day. And we are gonna be very consistent with our staff, make sure that they're enforcing that. And that there are specific times during the day that they can use their phones, such as break.
Even study hall, like
What's
if
that?
they're,
None. That's, and again, state law. And again, every time we started having, well, what about this time, or what about this time? It opens up a can of worms and becomes
Yeah.
harder and harder
I
to.
just feel like study hall is one of those times where it's like,
They have computers. We provide them all with computers, so they can,
what about tablets? Is that a little bit different?
that's not something that we provide for them, so. it would
Yeah, I
be
think the
one of those.
distinction is, it's RSU provided versus something
Okay.
like from
You
home.
know, so.
Alright, I'm just curious.
So, if you, let's say you needed to call a parent because there was going to be a pickup difference in time, your coach
Practice
told
has
you
been
that your
canceled.
practice had been canceled or whatnot, or another. And that happens after the lunchtime period, but before the end of school, and you'd really like to coordinate that, what do? They go down to the principal's office to be able to make that call?
So there's two options. They can, we still have, and some people didn't actually know this, but we still have a phone that students can use to call home.
Well, that's the one I would have.
That's what
You mean a corded phone?
A corded phone, they can come down and dial now.
Will they
What?
know how to use it
Yeah,
then?
right.
Right? That's
We're just-
probably a
it's
good
not whether they
exercise.
know how to use it, do they know their parents' phone number? Which is
Yeah,
really,
no,
That's
that
another
is-
thing
they
too, because
probably
usually
they don't, because it's just.
Actually, my kids do, Sam calls me from the middle school like weekly.
So, but we do allow them to stand out in the lobby
For weird
to make their
little-
phone call, but it's down in there and it's not in the classroom. Quite, that's because it's just easier than trying to find their phone number.
So you don't want a teacher to say, you have a student say, gee, just got canceled, can I just call you don't really want to teach, you want them to
No,
be consistent. saying-
Again, that I hate to say that there's exceptions to every rule, but sometimes there are. So like, what will happen, I guarantee, and we'll say, no, this isn't gonna happen, but all after-school activities are gonna get canceled because we have a snowstorm coming in, right? And it's 12:35 in the middle of sixth period when that announcement comes on.
But then you can actually have
So,
Mr.
rather-
Morrell send out a text message to the parents.
We do, we send that out to families, but
Right.
there's still some arrangements that have to happen
Right.
there. And we are still gonna trust our teachers, our professional educators, that rather than send every student that's involved in an after-school activity down to the office, we're gonna take 45 seconds here, do what you need to do to make your arrangements.
We're gonna use
Then
some
go
common
away,
sense.
And then we're gonna go back to
Good, so,
That's a good real life
there is a
one.
common
There
sense.
is a
Yeah.
common sense.
Okay, that
Yeah.
was the issue that I,
But it can't, it's
It's
not
not a
gonna be.
5-minute conversation.
It's not gonna be
It's not-
student initiated common sense. Because sometimes students will say, well, it's just common sense that I'm allowed to do this right now.
It's gonna be
It's gonna
teacher-led.
be teacher-led, yeah.
get permission to do it.
I will say that those are the only major changes in any of the handbooks. I know there's a lot there for you folks to try and process and read, but again, we do provide them and if you see anything and you wanna have questions for your administrators, I'll be here next month and certainly can answer any questions you may have.
Well, I have to admit that I only read the first one, the Jewett School. I haven't read the others, so I feel kind of like.
I'm
gee,
honestly really glad that the policy for the phones has happened so that we didn't have to make a policy.
Well, we already had the policy, which is nice.
But I'm glad that the law
The
is
law
saying,
has happened, yeah.
it's like sorry, it's the law.
And what I will say is that you're notifying that we have these, I mean, you're acknowledging that we have these handbooks, but it's not that they can't be changed throughout the course of the year. I mean, if you,
So we're just
You need to
acknowledging that we have
we
them.
have them, we've
Okay.
been fried with handbooks, and if we are gonna make changes to them, then we would notify you of those changes. And if there's changes that you would want to have happen, then we would go through the process.
Okay, I feel better about
Yeah.
All right. Is everybody all good with this? Ready for a motion?
Okey-dokey.
Yep, all right, I would look for motion then.
So moved.
Second.
He has to read it first.
Oh, do I have to read it?
That's all right, we got
I think we know what we're doing.
it. Second.
We got a motion and a second, all those in favor?
It's too hot, it's too hot
You should
now.
wait for him to read it.
I'm dying.
Next, we've got consideration that the school board approve the expenditure of funds from the technology reserve account to support the purchase of touchpoint time clocks to accompany the implementation of Red Rover time and absent management systems in the amount of up to $15,000.
So Mr. Morrow is going to give you a much better explanation than I have, but he did kind of help me try to capture all the key points in my report to you.
Yep.
But as you know, we have adopted a new system that we're bringing in called Red Rover that is going to do, it's going to be our new time clocks system and our sub-calling system is going to be much more efficient. And it's gonna eliminate a ton of paper use, tracking of staff absences. We're gonna have happier employees, certainly in the central office is gonna be happier. When we're not trying to track down blue forms from teachers that didn't fill them out. They're gonna have a better idea of how much sick time instantaneously as they're doing, filling these things out, kind of where they're at. So we are removing a system, and this is what we already knew through the budget process, we're removing a time clock system to bring in a new one that does more, and that was cost neutral. It was cost neutral at the time because we believed we had a hardware solution, which we still do. But we had a hardware solution that was basically gonna handle the clocking in and clocking out. Right now, they bring their badges in and they scan to an RFID scanner downstairs that will clock them in, and then they scan at the end of the day to punch in.
You mentioned school bus drivers do that. Do they do that on their regular run or just extracurricular?
So they can do it at the garage, we have a scanner out at the garage, or is that all by phone for those?
It's all by phone for
Yeah.
that, for about.
So you can actually do it on your cell phone per employee.
Do everything yourself, except for.
And in light of the most recent discussion, we're trying to keep staff cell phones away as much as possible as well. So I asked them to come in the building, clock in, clock out, just two more steps.
Right.
The other thing it brings in is no question about where they were when they clocked out. It's an accountability thing. If you're assigned to a building, you sign in the building. There are some exceptions for traveling staff, such as bus drivers, some of our maintenance personnel who may start on the football field today and start down in Jewett School tomorrow. We allow remote log in, log out for them.
Okay, but that's a small number, isn't it?
Yeah, there's probably 18 people, minus bus drivers, that are permitted to log in from mobile devices.
So I'll turn the rest of this over to Ms. Moore, but the big part I want is, the Red Rover system was something that we already had established through the budget process. So that part is not new. What this agenda item is only addressing is that we have, in mind, a physical hardware solution that we want to improve upon that will be better, more efficient, safer. That's what Mr. Moore will explain. But there was a cost to that we did not anticipate.
So working with the Red Rover folks have been good start to finish, and as Mr. Tripp pointed out, it was cost neutral. So the cost that we're paying for other softwares gives us not only replacement of those functions, but an enhancement, a great enhancement. The fact that we do that cost neutral is awesome. So when we first got together with Red Rover, they're like, well, we can do web apps, we can do Chrome Store, we can do whatever. We're like, oh, well, we'll build that solution. That's not a problem. What we ended up to is inconsistent deployment. So as we approach the end of Windows 10 in October, that means we have to have a Windows 11 machine if it's gonna be a Windows solution. Well, we have spent money to replace machines, and we have a lot that won't be able to be used. I can't say that I'll have a free machine on a Windows 11 that's available because of the license change or the operating system changeover. So then we look at Chromebooks, saying we have some Chromebooks, we can place it on the wall. So a couple things we ran into is as of July 1, Google eliminated what used to be called their kiosk mode, which is exactly what we were gonna use. So Red Rover has developed, but yet it's untested, their new Chromebook solution. You throw that in with the fact that the Chromebook on the wall needs to have a power plug and a network plug plugged in. At which point, either one of those can be plucked out accidentally or intentionally. And if for some reason that device goes to sleep, if that device gets logged into, we've got to go up and manipulate it. So we actually did not believe there was a hardware partner with Red Rover because they stay out of the hardware game. And so the last meeting we had with them, end of June, they mentioned Touchpoint has worked with them. And so Touchpoint is a known vendor that does POS systems and things of that nature. Well, they've teamed up with Red Rover, and they have a hardware solution that they will program with our Red Rover information and hand us the solution, we hang on the wall, and it works. The advantages to that is the only port that's in that is a network port that's buried in the wall connector. So you can't just accidentally unplug it. You could have the key to dismember it essentially. The other piece that we picked up that was a challenge for us is a badge scanner. You can buy them on Amazon for $30, but there are about 1,200 different versions of badges. There's high frequency, low frequency, there's MyFair, there's RFID, there's HID, there's all kinds. So which one works with our device on the device that we have, which per building is different. So we spent a lot of time trying to build it. Could we do it? Absolutely. Would we troubleshoot it a lot? Probably. So when you think of success and smooth flow, Touchpoint has the entire package that we can purchase from them. It also comes with a 1-year warranty, so if there is a problem, we have them to troubleshoot, and the option for extended warranties. And I like options, because if you've heard me about anything about tech, I don't like to buy something and have to keep paying you so I can use what I bought. Having it as an option is a great model. So if we're happy with their product and want to keep their warranty, we could do that in consecutive years for, I think it's 10% of the purchase value, which is a really good price. Expected life expectancy is 7 years for these. They could go a little more, a little less, depending on wear and tear. So basically what this allows us to do is my team will spend about half a day installing 5 buildings as opposed to about 3 days installing buildings. When staff come back, we already know the system works because it's been up, they've already tested the back end with Red Rover, and we're off and running. So at the beginning of school, when everyone starts flowing back in, this is a non-issue. It also helps with adoption. So the first application of Red Rover most of our staff are gonna have is that first swiping in the morning. And so when they come in on day one, that works, they don't even have to think about it. We've implemented that with success, because now Red Rover has a positive name with our staff. So between the time you save with my staff, the consistency that it works, the security, because nothing's accessible to it, as well as the accidental or intentional disabling of the device, in the warranty sitting in the background, I believe this is money well spent. Now, I did come to you in April and ask for expense of reserve monies, and I protect reserve monies because those are big purchases that would go out of there that normally would not be able to go in our regular budget. So this one's fairly small, but yet we stretched our budget last year without this being included. So what I can report is in April, you folks approved $120,000 expenditures on our server replacement. That is down to $80,000 rather than $120,000. So, and as I mentioned before, I was lucky enough to be able to go to Vegas and meet with the folks that were there, meet the salesperson, talk about the systems, and for some reason the price went down. I don't know if that was physical stature, I don't know if I flipped a coin and won the flip, whatever reason it was, it went down.
Bet on luck.
And we get more hardware than we originally intended, and the cost is down. So not only will we be able to put about at least $15,000 untouched in the reserve, we can cover this purchase as well as the original purchase. But it would be a different expense, so we wanna make sure we get your approval. Any questions? I can talk forever. A lot of points there.
We talked about that in the finance, so.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, Tom brought this up, there's lots of changes that are going on the finance side of things in terms of how we have to report, how we're paying out our overtime, and
Paid time off.
paid time off, EPL
There's
time.
all kinds of payroll changes. And it's gonna be really important that we have a system that is able to capture all of that information and get it over to our payroll department, so that we can properly do all of these things. And you know, like I said, as an auditor, I always love the idea that a time clock is secure. You know, that somebody messing with a time clock or being able to, log in remotely if they aren't supposed to and you don't really know if they're in the building or not. So I love this idea.
And again, this was, the reason this was not budgeted for in the original process is we thought we had the hardware solution. So this was an unanticipated $15,000. The fact that we are able to cover it within the same scope of the previously approved technology reserve is why our suggestion is that we go there, rather than try to find $15,000 in our approved budget that we have right now. So
Right.
that is,
And as somebody who had to do payroll when I ran my dialysis center, man, you don't wanna have to do anything manually if you don't have to. Like, if you're just double checking things, it's a much smoother process. Yeah, I think it seems like a no-brainer, I think it's a good idea.
No brainer.
All right, and we do want an action on this.
Yeah, because it's a different purchase with the reserve money, we think it's important that the board takes action on this.
So I will read this one. I would move to approve 15,000, up to 15,000 for a touch point time clock management system
From the technology reserve account.
from the technology reserve account.
Second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
I just hope nobody
You're
gets
welcome,
clotheslined by Red Rover, 'cause
No.
that used to happen a lot when I was a kid.
Over Red Rovers, happy right over.
I did love that game, man, was it dangerous.
It's not allowed on
Maybe
school playgrounds anymore.
How about dodgeball?
Just me, is that what you said?
Dodgeball is allowed in
Red ball is
PE.
I can think of a game that isn't allowed anymore.
Lawn darts?
Just smear the something, sure.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that was not allowed when I was a kid either.
No, all right, next we've got
Oh, we-
executive section pursuant to MRSA Title I, Section 405, 6B, for discussions relative to a personnel matter.
Motion to go.
All right, I-
Go in there.
So moved and a second. All those in favor?
In favor.
All right.
We were doing the wave for a minute.
Yeah. I thought you were just trying to like bring a little. Great, we are back from executive session. Now we are on to item number 7, consideration and possible action on a personnel matter. And to that point, I would like to make a motion to appoint Christina Hall. I almost called you by your last name. Sorry, Christina Hall, for position of interim principal at the Miles Lane School for this coming school year of the 25-26 school year.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Congratulations, Christina.
And thank
Hope you
you.
do the cat in the hat thing.
Enjoy your,
Thank you. Thank you.
That's something.
We have an email scheduled, sent to go out tomorrow morning. Christina has an email all written to go to parents tomorrow afternoon.
That'll put a lot of people at ease.
All right.
Yes, for sure.
Unless they were watching tonight, then.
Yeah.
Then they already know.
Yeah, the one or two of them.
I said, I don't think we have a big audience, but maybe I'm wrong.
Congratulations again. And now it is time for calendar and announcements. Curriculum committee is not meeting. Policy committee is August 12th, 5:30 central office. Finance committee is August 19th, 5:30 right here. School board meeting will be August 19th at 6 o'clock right here. And the facilities committee is not meeting. Do we have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That is unanimous.